Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm here with just the warmth of gratitude in my heart. I've heard from a few of you since yesterday's episode, and I just want to thank you all for reaching out and just the support that I feel. I mean it's support, it's understanding, it's empathy, it's compassion, and I feel it and I love it. And thank you all. And thank you even if you haven't replied and you're just thinking of it, because I think I can feel that too. And so I wanted to so anyway, what I'm talking about here is the things that people have come back with is not only just some real beautiful supportive messages and stuff and really interesting, really awesome messages, but also kind of telling me that like a once a week kind of podcast might be an okay thing. And so I just want to tell you that I really, really appreciate that sort of that permission, in a sense, and it really, really gives me some very, very strong confidence and some really, it just fills me with just good feelings. All right. And of course, I wanted to kind of say that, in the fashion in which I do everything, it's very unlikely to be all of one or none of another and that kind of thing. In other words, I'm most likely going to come up with some sort of hybrid and creative solution here. And among those ideas of a creative solution that I've already had, now that I sort of, this is what happens, right? When you overcome something or sort of, when the weight is lifted off, right? Like when you kind of, voice something that needs to be voiced and you turn towards it and you process through it. On the other side of that, you find a lightness and an inspiration and a creativity that just flows and just really naturally flows. And so it's always, that's part of what mindfulness is, right? Is turning towards the difficulty, not carrying it for days and weeks and months and years and lifetimes, but instead turning towards it and learning how to put it down. And we're going to get to that in just a second of how we're going to do that, right? But anyway, the creativity that I feel in the wake of sort of, sharing some heavy stuff with you yesterday and kind of, owning up to something that I've been carrying kind of a lot of guilt about. I really have felt bad that I haven't been here doing these episodes, and so on the other side of that and letting that off my chest and then receiving such support, and it's not, I mean, not, it's beautiful, but it's not, epic or anything. It's like, whatever. But receiving the support is, it provides me with the sort of the fodder for creativity to flow. And that's what's happened. And so the first thing that's come to my mind is that I have a whole bunch of interviews that I've done for another podcast that I don't know if you all have listened to it or not. I'm sure not all of you have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one day a week. I'm not sure which day it's going to be, but one day a week, I'm going to publish an interview that's already existing. I think I have like 5 or 6 of them. And so that'll buy me a month or month and a half to see if maybe I'm able to find other people to interview and to do like maybe a once a week, that kind of thing with the podcast, because I thought that would be fun. However, I don't want to make any promises because that, as I have learned, requires a lot of time and effort. And that's part of the challenge here. So we'll see what comes. Right, that's what we're gonna do. But look out for that in the next couple of days. But as far as what I'm hearing, though, it seems like once a week. So we'll see what kind of hybrid ideas we come up with. Okay, and so part of So let me tell you first how I came up with what I want to talk about today. It's not the first time we're going to talk about forgiveness, and I'll just give you the spoiler alert there. But I was sitting upstairs. So this weekend on Friday night, I have plans. I have a ticket to go to a show, a concert of one of my very favorite group of musicians. All have been like sort of involved and around the Grateful Dead scene. They're a bunch of young guys. They play like Grateful Dead kind of music, but very sort of originalized in a way. It's hard to explain, but the name of the band is Joe Russo's Almost Dead, and they're really jam. I mean, they're really good. And so they're playing one night in Colorado. Months ago, I got the ticket, quite frankly, up until even like last night, I've been like, I don't know if I really want to go. It's like, it's anyway. So I'm going to go. By hook or by crook. I'm going. I'm going to check it out and see what happens. But in the anticipation of this, I've realized like I have a lecture to give on Saturday that usually I spend Saturday morning. I've specifically blocked out hours on my Saturday morning so that I can prepare for my Saturday afternoon lecture. And so this Saturday, that's probably not going to happen. So I did this just now. I spent the last couple of hours doing this now. And so I just thought that was really funny because that's how, and it just goes into the whole thing, right? Because what I'm working on this morning, in anticipation of Saturday's lecture, is the concept of forgiveness, right? And forgiveness is what allows me to say, okay, yeah, you can do this in another way, right? You can design the lecture, you can do the whole work 2 days before. You don't have to do it right. There was a purpose behind, designing it to do it on the day of, right? Because I felt that was a very sort of present moment experience, right? We're really like, it was a certain process that I kind of came up with that was important and valuable and definitely has been beneficial. But it doesn't mean it has to be etched in stone, right? Like we have to be flexible. We have to be sort of buoyant in the flow of life. And so that's what I was able to do. But in order to be in that buoyancy of the flow of life, there's a couple of really important sort of skills that we need to be able to use in order to do that, right? One of those skills, very basically, is acceptance, right? We got to be able to accept that, what? Yeah, you got a conflict here. You want to go to the concert, but you also have this thing. What are you going to do? And so we just accept that there's a conflict, and then we work our way the best way we can. And here we go. Lo and behold, I have a couple hours on Thursday. It's all working out, right? Because I'm buoyant in the flow of it. I'm not trying to make something happen, right? And so that buoyancy comes first from acceptance, right? Well, first really from recognition that, okay, here's the conflict, instead of just having it in the haze of your mind and not really addressing it and just letting it affect all the different things that are going on in your day, but recognizing it and then accepting it, right? And now, once I've recognized it and accepted it, well, now there's always like sort of standing off in the wing, like just off the stage, right behind the curtain, ready to jump into action, is compassion, and also is forgiveness, right? And to me, I think compassion and forgiveness are very, very sort of, they're intertwined so much. It's like having two sides of the same coin in a sense, right? In my opinion, I see forgiveness as almost an expression of compassion, right? It's almost like like we have words, right? Like we have words and we have tone, right? So like how we express ourselves, is a form of something that's an energy inside of us, right? So the energy would be compassion, right? But the action of the expression, the flow of that energy shows up it shows up in kindness, and it shows up in forgiveness. That's how I see the sort of action of that, right? And so anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because forgiveness is, and it's funny, this also came up last night in my guided meditation. Every week I do a guided meditation on Wednesday evenings. You all should really come. I mean, it's you should come. You really should. Now, I've missed that a couple of weeks too. Can't tell you the amount of support I received from the group. I mean, there's typically, anywhere from 8 to 10 to 15 people show up from any given Wednesday night. And it's all on Zoom. It's very simple. And so I've missed the last 2 weeks for the same reason I haven't been recording the podcast and YouTube channel. And also from them. I mean, not only forgiveness, but just so much support and so much compassion and so much just like, hey, we're here for you. It's all good. Just come back when you're ready, kind of thing. I can't tell you how much it means to hear that kind of stuff. But anyway, one of the things we do in this Wednesday, what we call is it the Wednesday mindfulness meeting or something, just to be like business like, but it's basically just a guided meditation for about 30 minutes or so. And then we do a little discussion. Last night I didn't really have much to say because I was feeling pretty awkward and stuff first night back. And so, there was a couple of comments that people made, but we basically kept it short. But normally we do a little discussion. It's essentially like a coaching session. You can ask a question and I'm going to give you the answer as a coach who does this all day, every day. So, hey, it's a free resource for you. And then we wind up the session by reading from this beautiful little book. Now, this is the Pocket Thich Nhat Hanh. You can put Thich Nhat Hanh right in your pocket and walk around with him all day. But I keep him on my desk. He's like sort of I keep him here where I can see him all the time. In every call, every video I'm shooting, this is in the corner of my eye. And for me, it's very much like like a bust of Mozart on a piano or Beethoven, right, on a piano. And the reason, one of the reasons for this is that I know I'm way off on a tangent here, but real quick, one of the reasons that I love Thich Nhat Hanh so much, and for all of you just listening here, it will be I hope I'll put it in the description. If I forget to put it in the description, Thich Nhat Hanh is spelled ThichNhatHanh. And so you can look him up. But anyway, so this little book is, what we do at the end of the meeting is, in the last 5 minutes or so, I ask for someone just to call out a number, right? A number that's between 3 and 215, which mark the beginning and the end pages of this book. And so whatever number they call out, I kind of pick the next sort of chapter break, the closest one to that number, and I read from that. And it's like 2 or 3 of these little pages. It just takes a few minutes. And so last night, it was all about forgiveness, and it was about, inclusiveness is the way Thich Nhat Hanh approaches it, right? Now, I don't want to get too into the Buddhist aspects of it because that's not what this podcast is all about. That is more of what that other group I'm in. It's more about the Buddhism stuff, so we do try to introduce that. But here, it's not so much about the Buddhism, right? And so, but the way that, Thich Nhat Hanh sort of within the Buddhist concept talks about forgiveness and compassion and empathy, he talks about it in the context of inclusiveness, right? And now inclusiveness is a really, really beautiful way to envision this thing, right? Because inclusiveness is a sense of, it's not you and me, it's us, right? And scientists talk about this too. As you know, I'm taking courses with Dr. Dan Siegel and another course with Dr. Gabor Mate, and they're talking about the same stuff all the time. Dr. Siegel specifically, he has a thing that he calls MWE, MWE. So there's you, there's me, there's we, and then there's the MWE. There's me in the context of we. And it gets kind of complicated, but the idea here, complicated to explain, not complicated to understand though, right? So the idea to understand is that, we're all experiencing this moment together, right? We're all experiencing it. And in this moment, and when I say this moment, I just mean now, right? Like not a moment in time, not a second, not a half a second, not a quarter second, not a thousandth of a second, not a millionth of a second, which is how long it takes for a subatomic particle to exist. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. But not even a millionth of a second am I talking about. I'm talking about now. We are all experiencing now together. And so when we can look at a shared experience, then we start to be able to see in what Dan Siegel would call the perspective-taking form of empathy, right? Where we can see things from the other's point of view because the other is really just us, right? And I'm not trying to get too woo woo on this or anything, but that's really true, right? Like we are having this experience that is shared, right? And so therefore we're both experiencing this thing. Not, we are experiencing it as two separate things, right? You have your experience that led up to this. You have your understanding of the world. You have your nervous system training. You have your DNA sequencing. You know your biological expression, your epigenetics, all of that, right, is very true, and that's very you. And I have mine, right? But we're all experiencing this moment, this now, with all of this stuff, right? So I bring all of that from me, my nervous system, my DNA, my, upbringing, my epigenetics. I bring that into my experience of the world. You bring yours into this experience of the world, right? But we're just both experiencing the world. Right. And so what happens is then once we can start seeing it in this way, in this very inclusive way that we're both sharing this experience, now that opens us up to seeing things like, the fact that you're doing something that's bothering me. But if I can look at it in this inclusive way, I see that you're doing what you're doing because you're coming from a place of something that bothers you, right? You're trying to do something that is going to make you feel better, that is going to bring you happiness, that is going to bring you a relief from your suffering on some level. That is why you're acting. That's the same reason I am acting, because that's what this experience is all about. Right? This experience is about enjoying the happiness of the moment. And that's what we're really going for, even though a lot of people don't seem that way, because a lot of people mistake, happiness for something else, and that something else doesn't look like happiness. So for instance, somebody might think happiness is about money. This is true for my father. And so now everything that he does is all about money, which is not really about happiness, which is going to cause frustration and difficulty and this sense of separation, because I need my money. Don't threaten my money. Right? Now it feels like less of this shared experience. I don't mean to get you too personal here with my my upbringing here, right? But it's just one example of many ways in which we sort of distort and we become delusioned about, what's really going on here, right? But what is really going on here is that you are having this experience and I am having this experience. And at the end of the day, the thing that we're both trying to do is we're both trying to satisfy that which we believe is going to bring us happiness and well-being. It's that simple. It really is. And when we can recognize that fact, when we can use that as a given, accept that as a given, because it's always true. Now, sometimes we might be acting in the service of someone else, but we're doing that because we believe it's going to make us happy, right? So it's always the case. And so once I can see that, now I can lead myself instead of with a combative, sense of a conflict, right? Like when I do find conflict in my life, in my now, when the thing you're doing conflicts with the thing that I need in order to make myself happy, and we find this little, this schism, this conflict, this force against each other. Well, now instead of using a combative sense to that, instead of trying to meet force with force, I can meet force with yielding. And I can try to see the perspective of why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And once I see that, and again, it's what I'm going to see there is that you're doing it because you feel like you need to do it. Even if you're actively trying to hurt me, you're doing that because you believe that hurting me is going to make you more well. And if I can look at it that way, it becomes exponentially easier for me to forgive you. And in that forgiveness, okay, I don't have to tell you that I forgive you, okay? The forgiveness has nothing to do with you in this we. I mean, it of course it's all connected, but it's really about me in the we. For me to forgive you is for me to lay down this weight of anger and resentment and combativeness that makes me actually ill eventually. There's lots of science behind this, folks. Lots of science. Essentially, when you get into the place of unforgiveness, every time you think about that person, every time that person pops up in your mind anyhow, you're going to experience the stress response. Your cortisol, your adrenaline, your heart rate, your blood pressure, the whole thing. Over and over and over. And you might think of someone who you got like a grudge happening, an active grudge going on. You might think about that person 20 or 30 times a day, easily walking away. So that means that 20, I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, because it's going to make you very sick. Like that's ultra dangerous for us to live like that. We're just inviting disaster of a health sort. And so forgiveness is not for the other person. I mean, except for how you relate to the other person, but forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness is for you to come down, to release that tension, to let go of that angst, that anger, that rage, that whatever, resentment. Or let go of the shame and the guilt and the self-flagellating resentment. In other words, you can forgive yourself the same way you can forgive someone else. And sometimes doing that is exactly the thing that's going to help you to get through the thing that you're struggling with. Right? The thing that's going to make me get through a conflict with someone else is the forgiveness, because the forgiveness allows me to understand what the heck you're going through. And if I can understand what the heck you're going through, well, now we can solve the problem. Because every conflict has a solution. Every conflict can have a resolution. But the will has to be there, and the will to resolve comes from that well of forgiveness. And just like I can do that for someone else who's doing something that's bothering me, I can do that for myself. When I see myself over the last 2 weeks doing all this behavior, laying in bed and crying all day because I'm so, just mourning my childhood, right? Like, I can forgive myself for needing to do that. Knowing full well that, the laundry's not getting done, the podcast isn't getting done, the kids aren't being stimulated the way they should be. There's a lot wrong with what's happening here. And if I bash myself over it, if I blame and stomp my feet and wring my hands and beat myself up over it, you think that makes it better? Or do you think that makes it more confused? Do you think it makes it more hurt, more painful, more difficult to understand? Because the first step in any solution, in any healing, in any progress of any kind is understanding. It's awareness. It's that non-judging, accepting awareness that we practice, that we are welcome to practice on a moment-to-moment basis. And so, and just like, just like we don't have to tell the other person that we've forgiven them, like we're not letting them off the hook. So if you decided last week that you wanted to take a day off and watch baseball on TV all day or something like that, instead of, mowing the lawn, right? And you're feeling like you got to beat yourself up over it. Well, forgiveness doesn't mean that it's okay you didn't do the lawn, right? It's not. No, you owed that to your partner or to yourself or whatever. And so you got to do better on that. That's still true. but you don't have to sit there and beat yourself up over it, because beating yourself up over it is not going to allow you to accept it and thereby move past it. Figure out what it is that made you want to watch baseball instead of mowing the lawn. And once you understand that, well, now, okay, if baseball's more important, then do your lawn on another day, right? Or whatever the thing is, there's a solution there, but you can't find the solution until you can bring your awareness to the problem. And you can't bring your awareness to the problem many times unless you can forgive, whether it's another person or it's yourself. All right, folks. And by the way, this self-compassion course that we're in week 7 now, so it's going to be wrapping up in the next couple of weeks. I am going to be launching again in early January, and part of it is going to have to do with New Year's resolutions. So let me know if you're interested, and I'll tell you all about it. All right, everybody, have a great day. I wish you well, and I'll be back. And again, as far as the podcast format is concerned, we're going to just do the next few days, see what happens. I might miss a day or two. We're going to see what goes on. By the middle of the next week, I'll have a better idea. All right. So please bear with me and please forgive me for your benefit. All right, everybody, take care.